The crowd didn't know how to react. They sat in shocked silence as the announcer's voice echoed through the arena. In second place, Arnold Schwarzenegger. For a moment, there was nothing. No applause, no cheers, no reaction, just silence. The kind of silence that happens when something impossible has just occurred. Arnold stood on stage, smile frozen on his face, while the crowd tried to process what they had just heard. Second place. Arnold Schwarzenegger had just won second place at Mr. Olympia. It was 1980. Arnold had been the reigning champion for 7 consecutive years. 7 times. Nobody had ever won more consecutive titles. Nobody had ever dominated the sport the way Arnold had dominated it. And now, for the first time in years, he was not the winner. The man who had beaten him was Franco Columbu, an old rival. Someone Arnold had defeated multiple times before. Someone everyone assumed would never beat Arnold again. But Franco had beaten him, and the crowd didn't know what to do with that information. When the announcements were finally finished and the competitors left the stage, the arena began to empty. People filed out slowly, confused, talking quietly to each other. Nobody was celebrating. Nobody was excited. It felt like a funeral. Arnold walked backstage, and the energy there was different too. People approached him with sympathy rather than congratulations. They said things like, "You'll come back," and "This doesn't define you," and all the other things people say when they don't know what to say. Arnold accepted it all gracefully. He smiled. He thanked them. He said all the right things. But inside, something had broken. For 7 years, Arnold had been undefeated. For 7 years, he had been the standard, the benchmark, the thing that all other bodybuilders were compared against. And now he wasn't. Now he was second. Now someone else was the champion. Now his reign had ended. The backstage area eventually cleared out. The other competitors left. The judges left. The promoters left. The media left. And Arnold was alone. He sat in a quiet corner of the backstage area, still wearing his posing trunks, still wearing the stage tan, still feeling the adrenaline from performing. But now, the adrenaline was mixing with something else. Disappointment, confusion, a sense of loss that was almost physical. For the first time in his career, Arnold understood what it felt like to lose. He had lost competitions before he became a champion. But that was different. That was before he knew what winning felt like. That was before he understood what it meant to be the best. This loss was different. This loss meant he wasn't the best anymore. Arnold sat there for a long time. Nobody bothered him. Nobody approached him. He was left alone with his thoughts. And then, after an hour, after the arena had completely emptied, after everyone had gone home to process what had happened, Arnold did something that nobody expected. He stood up. He was still in his posing trunks, still covered in stage tan, still wearing nothing but the minimal clothing required for competition, and he walked back into the main arena. The arena was completely empty now. The lights were still on, but there were no people, just him in a vast, empty space. Arnold walked to the middle of the stage, the same stage where he had just lost, where he had just been dethroned, where his 7-year reign had ended, and he began to train. Not lightly, not casually, with absolute intensity. He started with posing. He went through every single pose in his arsenal, every position, every angle, every flex. He held them longer than he had ever held them before. He pushed deeper into each pose. He demanded more from his body. The muscles were already tired from competition. They were already depleted. They already hurt. But Arnold pushed them anyway. He moved from one pose to the next, flowing through his entire routine, over and over, again and again. And as he trained, something shifted inside him. The disappointment didn't go away. The loss didn't become acceptable, but something else emerged. Something that was more powerful than the disappointment. A commitment, an absolute, unshakable commitment to never let this happen again. Arnold understood, in that moment alone on the stage, that second place wasn't the end. It was the beginning. It was the beginning of understanding what it meant to earn the title. Not just to have it, but to earn it every single day. For 7 years, Arnold had been defending a title. He had been working to maintain his position, but he had been assuming it was his, that it belonged to him by default. Now, he understood differently. The title didn't belong to him. The title belonged to whoever was willing to work the hardest, whoever was willing to sacrifice the most, whoever refused to accept anything less than perfection. And Arnold had gotten complacent, not in training, but in his mind. He had started to believe that he was invincible, that nobody could beat him, that his dominance was permanent. Franco Columbu had proven him wrong. And now, Arnold was going to prove that he understood the lesson. He trained on that empty stage for 3 hours. Alone, no audience, no judges, no recognition. Just him and the work that needed to be done. By the time he finished, he was completely exhausted. His muscles were screaming. His body was depleted. He could barely stand. But his mind was clearer than it had been in years. Arnold left the arena that night with single thought. Franco Columbu had won this year, but he would never win again. Not because Arnold was angry, not because he was seeking revenge, but because Arnold had learned something that most people never learn. True championship isn't about winning once. It's about understanding what it takes to win, and then being willing to do that work every single day. What happened next shocked the bodybuilding world. Arnold came back the next year, 1981, and he won Mr. Olympia again. He reclaimed his title. He defeated Franco Columbu and everyone else. But more importantly, the way he dominated that competition was different from how he had dominated before. It wasn't arrogant. It wasn't assumed. It was earned. Every muscle, every pose, every ounce of conditioning. Everything was on display as a result of someone who had learned what it meant to lose. Franco Columbu never beat Arnold again. In fact, Franco's victory in 1980, that single win, became the defining moment of his career, not because he had won, but because he had given Arnold the motivation to become even greater. Years later, when Arnold was interviewed about that second-place finish, he said something that revealed the depth of what had happened. "I needed to lose," Arnold said. "I needed to understand what it felt like to not be the best. Because when you're winning, you start to take it for granted. You start to think you're special. You start to believe that your dominance is automatic. But losing taught me that there is no automatic. There's no default. There's only the work you do and the commitment you make. And if you stop doing the work, if you stop making commitment, someone else will do it better than you." The shocking truth came later. When Franco Columbu was asked about his win in 1980, Arnold was the better bodybuilder, Franco said. He had the better physique. He had the better conditioning. But that year, the judges made a decision. Maybe they wanted something new. Maybe they thought the sport needed a change. I don't know. But what I do know is that Arnold's loss was the best thing that could have happened to him, because it made him hungry again. It made him remember why he started competing in the first place. That was the real story of second place. It wasn't about being beaten by Franco Columbu. It was about Arnold learning that championship isn't something you earn once and then keep forever. Championship is something you earn every single day. In the gym, in your diet, in your training, in your mind. And the moment you stop earning it, someone else will. The empty arena where Arnold trained after losing became legendary in bodybuilding circles. People who were there that night, staff members, a few remaining crew, talked about what they had witnessed. A man, completely alone, training with more intensity than most people train in a lifetime. Not because anyone was watching, not because there was recognition, but because he had learned something fundamental about himself. That real strength isn't about being the best in front of others. Real strength is about being the best when nobody's watching. Real strength is about doing the work when there's no trophy at the end, when there's no applause, when there's nothing but your commitment to excellence. Arnold never lost Mr. Olympia again. He won multiple more times. And each victory was built on the foundation of that one loss. Because Arnold understood something that separates true champions from everyone else. The trophies don't matter. The titles don't matter. The applause doesn't matter. What matters is the work. What matters is a commitment. What matters is a refusal to accept anything less than your absolute best. And sometimes you have to lose to understand that. Sometimes you have to come in second to learn what it takes to come in first. Sometimes the greatest victory comes after the greatest defeat. That's the real story of the day Arnold came in second. It wasn't about Franco Columbia winning. It wasn't about Arnold's reign ending. It was about Arnold learning, in an empty arena, alone on a stage, that true championship begins the moment you stop being champion. It begins in the work that nobody sees, in the commitment that nobody applauds, in the decision to be excellent when excellence is no longer guaranteed. And from that moment forward, Arnold was unstoppable, not because he was arrogant, but because he understood exactly what it took to win. And he was willing to do that work every single day. The day Arnold came in second was the day he truly became a champion.